Story 1. A few years back, the director of the department I was working in bullied a supervisor into taking her own life, then had the nerve to complain when people wanted to go to her funeral. She was a well-loved trainer and a mother of two. During the funeral, we all received an email stating that they were hiring for her position. Forget Spectrum and forget Charter. Story 2. I was a factory worker and was working very hard. I produced more parts than anyone else. One week, I was a little under the weather, and my production slowed to the same amount as everyone else's. I was written up for that because my production slowed to that of everyone else. That was the last time I cared about any company or production. Story 3. Dealing with a toxic work environment where gossip and favoritism were the norm made me understand how deeply workplace culture can impact mental health and morale, and how badly some workplaces neglect their employees' well-being. Story 4. Having this happen multiple times in different jobs has really given me insight into how things actually work. Despite being the best person at my job, I have been denied promotions and opportunities because I am too valuable where I am at. So I stopped playing that game. If I go for an opportunity and I am turned down in favor of someone less capable than me, I immediately start forming an escape plan. I have learned most management teams are more than willing to take advantage of a hard worker who is pulling the majority of the weight on a team. They get scared of losing their anchor, so they keep that person locked down while passing along the weak links so they do not have to deal with them. Story 5. Budget cuts will impact the highest paid employees the least. Administration will always be fine. Those of us who do the work will get the worst of it. Healthcare employee here. I've also watched incompetent people fail upwards way too many times. Story 6. I was sexually assaulted by a customer at the end of the night during my last week at the job. I reported it to our only manager present, and he asked me to hold on a few minutes while he closed out the registers. I waited for about 45 minutes only to find out he left. Story 7. The IT director began stalking me, a 34-year-old female, through the workplace cameras and was downloading videos and pictures of me. He began stalking my social media and would regularly reach out to current and former colleagues to gossip about me and slander me, calling me a whore because I filed a report that the audiovisual setups repeatedly didn't work in the conference rooms and were a barrier to productivity. He also repeatedly tried to sabotage my projects and even tried to bizarrely claim credit for one, even though he's not remotely close to my field at all. It was literally the most mundane IT ticket, and it led to an insane harassment campaign for almost a full year. Human Resources repeatedly refused to do anything and actually didn't conduct an appropriate investigation required in California. He only got fired after one of his reports came forward about his threats and plans to poison my dog in the office and how he was going to make sure I never stepped out of line again. It was only when my peers came forward and reported this guy to the chief executive officer that it got any attention. Honestly, people only came forward because he was threatening to kill my dog, who was basically our office mascot. Nobody cares about you, and the majority of people will support psychopaths to keep the peace. Story 8. University chancellor sending out congratulatory emails about how we brought in $2.2 billion in grants last year, while I was denied a 1% raise, even as inflation was peaking. She is paid over $2 million a year, and I'm struggling to afford to keep living. I've gone so hard in the unionization department ever since. I loudly talk about the importance of organized labor so everyone can hear, and if I get fired, they will all know why. I don't care. Let my sacrifice mobilize them to realize that if what I was saying wasn't true, they wouldn't have fired me. Either we unionize and I win, or I lose my job and still win in the long run. I'm ready to die for this. We need research to keep moving humanity forward, and I won't let it be captured by some greedy, rapacious individuals at the top of the chain. Story 9. A friend of mine who, to be honest, was not the brightest, was asked to lie under oath for our boss, and she did. 2 months later, she was laid off. This was the same company where you could only advance if you were friends with the owner. And by friends, I mean doing drugs in the bathroom with him or having an intimate relationship with him. Story 10. Loyalty and working hard doesn't really matter. They will use that to their advantage. I worked at a mortgage company for 6 years, starting from an entry-level position to assistant supervisor of my department. and they had no problem laying me off. I even moved to Texas after my department was relocated there. Story 11, 2 in the same day. I worked for United Healthcare, which should tell you enough as a phone representative. One man was trying to get dialysis, which was covered for him, but they constantly denied his claims. He threatened to find me, hurt me, and kill me. I couldn't even blame him that much, even though I was really shaken up. He was dying, and his insurance company wasn't doing their job. The second was a woman who called often because she was lonely. She also often had claims denied that should have been paid out. But that day she called because her son had taken fentanyl and was unconscious. He was an addict as a result of United Healthcare not paying his claims either, and he was severely depressed. I know she should have called an ambulance instead, but this was an 89-year-old woman with failing faculties, and she had us on speed dial, so we called for her. I'm not afraid to say that I'm on Luigi's side. That job affected me deeply. Story 12. The day a veteran, Ron, got hit in the head with a battery-powered helicopter, he stood up, realized it was the boss who did it, and just sat back down. I've never been the same mentally after seeing this in the workplace. The boss just laughed and covered his face like a mean girl. This guy was a war hero working in a call center to take care of his wife and survive. What a dystopian place that was. Came back to add a little context since a few people expressed interest. Story 13. My job as a correctional officer taught me that the other correctional officers are the most dangerous part of that job. Also, as one of 3 white officers at my prison, I learned what being on the receiving end of daily racism is like. Story 14. Micromanaging from a new boss. The old boss was amazing but had to leave due to health issues. The new boss took a completely functioning system and destroyed it through excessive micromanagement. She didn't even last 6 months, but she lost her entire middle management staff within 2 weeks. This was an assisted living facility. Story 15. Learn real quick to never trust management, no matter how friendly they seem when it comes to talking to you. Keep your thoughts and secrets to yourself and how you think of others. Corporations are never your friend, and if you have to go to human resources, document every message and every conversation so if something bad happens they cannot deny it and try to throw you under the bus. Story 16. I was working for a health insurance company on a project that would have probably saved lives and money by processing their health records every night to detect if they were getting close to a number of health issues using their test data and other information. I spent years on this project and tens of millions of dollars. The leader of the project got promoted, and the person who took his place disliked him and canceled the project simply out of spite. That place was also terribly inefficient because different teams would develop things and actually charge other teams to use them. They had to take that into account with their budgets, making it the most poorly managed place I have ever worked. That entire company should not exist. Story 17. The boss hired his cousin-in-law to be the director of marketing for our very niche business software application. The boss told us all about this guy's skills and experience. We were all excited because we had been begging for more effective marketing. The person shows up, and his experience is that he has 30,000 followers on TikTok and manages the social media for his dad's retail business, which has over 1,000 followers. In his first week, he filmed TikTok dances advertising our software. Our target market is 60-plus-year-old mechanic shop owners, so definitely TikTok dances should resonate. He didn't know how Google Ads work and spent $20,000 in his first month. Also, he couldn't spell and we didn't get any real conversions. He bought fake plants, and a week later I caught him watering them. I asked if he knew they were fake, and he replied, "Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't need water." Fast forward 2 years, and somehow this company is successful because of the employees' hard work. The boss, after saying he would never sell the company, sold it. He tells the acquiring company that his cousin is the real brain behind the company, so they keep him on and promote him to chief operating officer. 1 month later, they realize the guy is inept, but because of some contractual clause, they can't fire him. He literally gets paid $300,000 to not work now. He kept showing up to the office, so they told him he could work remotely, but he wouldn't. Finally, they started pretending to remodel the office so he wouldn't come in. Story 18. I started working for my doctor doing medical billing. They discovered I was good with people and working collections, That was soul-sucking, but I was a bit of a bootlicker back then, so I was able to collect a lot of money. They made me the primary communicator for the department via phone and in person. I have a medical condition that causes degenerative hearing loss, which my employer knew about because they were my doctor for years. I wear hearing aids and keep them visible, and that doctor owned the practice. It got to the point where verbal communication was extremely difficult and stressful. I asked for a job duty change to accommodate my hearing loss, which would have realistically been a 10 to 15-minute task. The request was denied. I was pulling in too much money, so they didn't want to reassign me. I had to quit for my mental health and ended up starting my own business because I never want to count on someone understanding and having any kind of compassion for my disabilities in the working aspect of life ever again. Story 19. My very first job in high school was bagging groceries at an upscale store. One of the training videos openly admitted that everyone knows we charge $1 to $2 more for items, but people come here for your smile. I remember immediately thinking, if my smile is worth that much, why am I only being paid $6 per hour? I was also very clear that I could work a maximum of 20 hours a week due to school. By the third week, I was on the schedule for 45 hours. I ghosted. Forget them. Story 20. The day I learned people align themselves racially despite what is actually right, I was accused of sexual harassment by someone who was harassing me. She was black and said all the other black employees would support her. I, being pretty left-wing at the time, believed there was no way they would do that. They knew full well what was going on. Wrong. One even apologized, saying he knew what she was like, but still had to back the black. Maybe radicalized is a strong word, but it definitely changed my stance on a lot of things. I lost my job and had a difficult time finding a new one, all because skin color was more important than doing the right thing. Story 21. You can't fix a toxic employee. A performance improvement plan doesn't work. Human resources advice doesn't work. Counseling doesn't work. You will watch it affect other employees negatively and spend countless energy fixing a problem that isn't solvable. Story 22. Having a student raise their hand in art class to ask me if condoms protect against sexually transmitted diseases. I told them that by law, I am not allowed to tell them that yes, use a condom. It just freaks me out that teens are not being educated about sex at all. Story 23. I was told I didn't know my products. Fun times. Our products were upgraded with new features. No one bothered to train us about the significance of their features. Haha. Story 24. I was climbing the corporate ladder and I had a young child. One day, my child was too sick for daycare, so I used vacation hours to spend the day at home. I had a big project due soon and asked my supervisor if I could work a few hours at home, if possible depending on my child, and get paid for those hours so I didn't have to use my vacation hours for the whole day. His answer? Yes, but don't tell anyone. My supervisor was a good guy trying to do the right thing, but it still upset me. I felt guilty as a mom for needing to work while my child was sick, and guilty as a professional with family obligations impacting work attendance. I was also upset at my employer for the lack of flexibility and understanding. When I became a manager somewhere else, things ran differently in my team. If you had sick kids or sick parents, you could just be honest about it, and we did what we could to support and accommodate you, like shifting hours for a few weeks to support a family member's medical treatment. Instead of adding to your stress, the team would always step up to make sure things ran smoothly while you were away. We did lots of things differently on my team while still working within the rules of the company. My team was also very high-performing, and I was very proud of them. Many have become good friends. You can manage a team with care and understanding and still get amazing results, if not better. Story 25. Seeing a coworker get fired for taking time off to care for a sick family member really hit home how little the corporate world can care about its employees' personal lives. It made me much more aware and supportive of workers' rights and the need for supportive workplace policies. Story 26. Finding out that the managers were giving themselves raises every year but refusing to conduct the required yearly employee evaluations, allowing them to avoid giving anyone else a raise for years. They also allowed themselves to work from home but refused this option to everyone else. Story 27. working my first minimum wage job and seeing how hard everyone worked for such little pay while the higher-ups earned exponentially more for less visible effort. It really opened my eyes to the disparities in work versus reward in the corporate system and pushed me towards advocating for better labor rights and fair wages. Story 28. Came into work at a small business one morning to the news that one of my coworkers killed themselves. It was shocking and no one wanted to work that day. The owner came over to a group of us grieving and said, "Why is everyone so sad? We have someone coming in tomorrow for an interview. Let's get back to work and quit letting personal things get in the way." I quit that day along with everyone else except for one woman.